December 19th, 1944. Verdun, France. 16 senior Allied commanders sit inside a freezing operations room. Just 50 miles to the north, the Battle of the Bulge is raging. The largest battle the United States Army has ever fought. The 101st Airborne Division is surrounded in the town of Bastogne. German tanks are closing in. Supplies are running out. Inside the headquarters, Supreme Commander Dwight Eisenhower asks a simple question. How soon can you attack? Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery answers first. 1 week. Other generals say 10 days. Then one man stands up, General George S. Patton. I can attack with 3 divisions in 48 hours. The room falls silent. General Omar Bradley looks at his old friend and thinks only one thing. That is impossible. Patton's entire Third Army is attacking east toward Germany. To reach Bastogne, he would have to turn 250,000 soldiers 90 degrees in the middle of winter and attack straight into German armored divisions. But only a few days later, something happens that changes everything. Moments like this changed the course of entire battles during the Second World War. If you enjoy stories about real decisions, real commanders, and the moments that shaped history, consider subscribing to the channel. Because in this video, we're going to see how one decision by General Patton shocked even his closest allies. Now let's go back one day earlier. The crisis had actually begun one day earlier. On the evening of December 18th, 1944, General Omar Bradley sat inside the headquarters of his 12th Army Group in Luxembourg. In front of him were intelligence reports arriving almost every hour. For 2 days now, German forces had been pouring through the Ardennes forest. Allied intelligence had long believed that the Ardennes were too difficult for a major offensive. The region was filled with dense forests, narrow roads, and steep hills. Because of that, the American defenses there were relatively thin. But now it was clear that the Germans had taken advantage of that assumption. More than 200,000 German soldiers, supported by powerful armored divisions, had smashed into the American lines. Entire units were being pushed back. Communication between divisions was breaking down. And the most dangerous situation was developing around a small Belgian town called Bastogne. There, the 101st Airborne Division had been completely surrounded. Bradley immediately understood the danger. If Bastogne fell, the German offensive could break through even further into the Allied lines. So he picked up the phone and called one of the most aggressive commanders in the entire Allied army, General George S. Patton. At that moment, General George Patton and his Third Army were focused on a completely different mission. For weeks, Patton had been pushing east toward Germany. His forces had just achieved a difficult breakthrough near the city of Saarbrücken. After weeks of hard fighting, the German defensive line had finally begun to crack. Patton believed the moment had come to push even deeper into Germany. His armored divisions were preparing to exploit the breakthrough and drive forward as fast as possible. One unit was especially important for this plan: the 10th Armored Division. It was one of the fastest and most experienced armored units in the Third Army. Patton intended to use it to lead the next phase of the advance into Germany. So when Bradley called and explained the crisis in the Ardennes, Patton's first reaction was frustration. His army was finally gaining momentum. Stopping the offensive now could waste weeks of hard fighting. But Bradley's message was clear. The situation in Bastogne was becoming critical, and the German offensive was growing stronger every hour. While Bradley and the Allied commanders were trying to react to the German offensive, the German High Command believed their operation was unfolding successfully. One of the most important figures behind Germany's armored strategy was General Heinz Guderian. Guderian had helped create the doctrine of Blitzkrieg, the fast armored warfare that had allowed Germany to conquer much of Europe in the early years of the war. He understood better than most commanders how powerful speed and aggressive maneuver could be on the battlefield. And when German officers later discussed the Allied commanders they respected the most, Guderian made one observation about General George Patton. Patton was one of the most dangerous Allied generals. He moved his armies faster than most commanders believed possible. Despite his first reaction, Patton quickly understood how serious the situation in the Ardennes was becoming. German forces were advancing fast, and the pressure on the American lines was growing every hour. Later, Patton wrote about that moment in his personal diary. "Germans have launched a major offensive. We may have to change the direction of our attack completely." What Patton was considering was one of the most difficult maneuvers any army could attempt during wartime. To save Bastogne, the entire Third Army would have to change direction. That meant turning an army of nearly 250,000 soldiers, hundreds of tanks, thousands of trucks, entire armored and infantry divisions, and doing it in the middle of one of the coldest winters Europe had seen in years. Most roads in the Ardennes were narrow, icy, and barely suitable for large military convoys. Snowstorms were already slowing movement across the region, and German armored units were advancing toward Bastogne at the same time. Yet Patton believed speed could still change the situation. Instead of continuing the offensive into Germany, he ordered his staff to begin planning a massive 90-degree turn of the entire Third Army. Columns of vehicles would have to move north across crowded roads. Supply lines would need to be reorganized. Artillery units, fuel convoys, and medical support would all have to follow the new direction of the attack. It was a logistical challenge of enormous scale. Many officers believed such a maneuver could take weeks. Patton intended to do it in days. Over the next several days, Patton's plan began to unfold. Columns of American vehicles moved slowly through the freezing roads of Luxembourg and southern Belgium. Tank crews fought through snow, ice, and constant German resistance. Fuel trucks struggled to reach the advancing units, and the weather made air support almost impossible. Still, the Third Army continued pushing north. Patton's commanders understood the urgency of the mission. Inside Bastogne, the situation was becoming desperate. The soldiers of the 101st Airborne Division had been surrounded for days. They were low on ammunition. Medical supplies were running out, and German artillery continued to pound the town. But the defenders refused to surrender. Then, on December 26, 1944, something changed. American tanks suddenly appeared on the southern road leading into Bastogne. They were from the 4th Armored Division of Patton's Third Army. After days of intense fighting, they had broken through the German lines, and the road into Bastogne was finally open. The siege had been broken. When the news reached Allied headquarters that Patton's tanks had broken through to Bastogne, many commanders were stunned. Just a few days earlier, most of them had believed such a maneuver would take weeks. Yet Patton had managed to turn an entire army, march through winter conditions, and break the German encirclement in less than a week. Among those who fully understood how extraordinary this achievement was General Omar Bradley. Bradley had known Patton for years. They had studied together, fought together, and commanded armies during some of the most intense battles of the war. But even Bradley had not expected the maneuver to succeed so quickly. Later, when speaking about the relief of Bastogne, Bradley said something that perfectly captured the scale of what had happened. Patton's maneuver was one of the most brilliant military moves of the entire war. The relief of Bastogne became one of the most famous moments of the Battle of the Bulge. In just a few days, Patton had done something that many experienced commanders believed was impossible. He turned an entire army, moved hundreds of thousands of soldiers through winter conditions, and broke through enemy lines to reach a surrounded division. The maneuver showed exactly why Patton had earned his reputation as one of the most aggressive and unpredictable commanders of the war. But it also showed something else. Even in the middle of chaos and uncertainty, one bold decision could change the course of an entire battle. Now I want to hear your opinion. Do you think Patton's maneuver to relieve Bastogne was one of the greatest military decisions of the Second World War? Write your opinion in the comments. And if you enjoy stories like this, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching. This was Mike, and this was War, from Mike's point of view. See you in the next video.